The F-20 is one of the best fighters that never went into production. These were the words of aviation author Steve Pace after a deep dive into the design that was sadly never mass-produced. And it's hard to disagree with him. This bird, designed to combat Soviet technology and boost the United States' international sales, checked all the boxes that needed checking, and yet it never took off. Its quick scramble time and long-term viability, which managed to blow even the great F-16 out of the water, are now just part of a museum piece at the Los Angeles Science Center, which begs the question, why were only 3 prototypes ever built? The truth is, the F-20 found itself at the center of a political and bureaucratic Gordian knot, serving as an example of how policies affect military tech. Before its untimely cancellation, however, one of the most beautiful birds never built flew high. Just before we continue, today's video is sponsored by Plord. I don't know if you're like me, but you finish a meeting, your brain is full, your notes are scattered, somebody's already asking you for follow-ups. You're like, follow-ups on what? What's happening? I don't remember half the meeting. Well, good news, because that is where, I'll take it out of my pocket, is where Plord comes in. Plord is basically a digital secretary. All you have to do is you press this button to start taking notes, and it's got 2 modes. There's the first one, you have the lever slid up, which allows you to record a call. So if you're on the phone, it'll record the call and take notes for you, which is fantastic, or slide it down, and that's just passive mode. So if you're in a meeting, you can just leave it on the desk, everyone can be heard by it, and it identifies the speakers and it puts it into these fantastic actionable notes. In fact, my biggest use case of this is not in the talking points, so I don't know if they're okay with this. My biggest use case is just like random thoughts that come to me. I'll just press the button. And I know you could do it on the phone. You could like go into voice memos and I even tried assigning the action button on my phone to like voice memos, and then trying to get this to work like a year ago before we had Plord, and it was just a massive hassle. And it didn't have this technology to turn it into actually useful notes, so I'd have to go, even when I did manage to record something, I'd have to go back and listen to it and type it. It was insane. It's 2025, and then Plord came along and fixed everything. It's ridiculously easy to use. You just attach it to the back of your phone and you always have it with you. Plus, your data stays fully safe with end-to-end encryption, meeting global privacy standards. Plord Note is the best meeting secretary you'll ever. There's also Note Pro, which has advanced hardware. They couldn't actually send that to me in time, so I haven't tried it. Full transparency. They did send me the pin, which is when you clip on yourself, and that's awesome. I feel like it's like I'm a Star Trek nerd. It's a comm badge. You press it and you take a note. Anyway, hit the link in the description below, scan the QR code, and use my code for a great discount on some of Plord's selected products. Thank you to Plord AI for sponsoring, and now back to today's video. Conception and design. The F-20 is, in essence, an upgrade on Northrop's F-5E Tiger II, a fighter designed to combat the MiG-21 in the midst of the Cold War. In 1980, almost a decade after the Tiger II's introduction, President Jimmy Carter, who had so far maintained a strict weapons export policy, allowed the development of a new aircraft to replace the Tiger II, but even more importantly, to be made available for allies. The program, called the FX and later renamed the F-20, had to outperform the Tiger II, but it could not use any advanced avionics system that were also used in serving US aircraft. This condition was placed because the F-20 was intended to be mass-produced and sold to allied countries, but the United States couldn't allow allied countries to possess top-of-the-line aircraft because, for one, President Carter maintained a strong anti-weapons export policy. On top of that, there were serious fears of allies turning foes, and the US couldn't arm potential future enemies with high-end aircraft. Therefore, the F-20's initial design followed a leading line stating that the aircraft should be better than the Tiger II, but it shouldn't be the best it can be, which is kind of counterintuitive for engineers. The most notable jump in performance came from the engine. The F-20 used a single General Electric F404 engine, which provided about 60% more thrust than Tiger II's J85 engine. The Tiger II maxed out at about 7,000 pound force, or 16 kilonewtons, while the Tiger Shark single engine created 11,000 pound force, or about 49 kilonewtons. Combining that with the Tiger Shark's weight, which is almost 12,000 pounds when empty, a 2,500 pound increase in comparison to the Tiger II, and the new aircraft gets a thrust-to-weight ratio of 1.13. This allowed the F-20 to reach speeds of almost Mach 2, that's 2,124 kilometers or 1,320 miles per hour, a flight ceiling of greater than 55,000 feet, and a climb rate of 52,800 feet per minute. In comparison, its predecessor could only reach Mach 1.63, its service ceiling was about 3,000 feet shorter, and its climb rate was much lower at around 34,500 feet per minute. "The future is now, old man," said the new Northrop baby as it climbed and flew much faster with overall greater range. The old Tiger II had a realistic combat radius of about 140 miles, 220 kilometers, including a 20-minute fuel reserve for return to base. The new Tiger Shark's most restrictive range, in case of maximum weapon onboarding, topped out at 170 miles or 280 kilometers. Combat air patrol missions, which required less armament and allowed the Tiger Shark to be equipped with drop tanks, would see it fly for 350 miles or 560 kilometers. Another major and often overlooked aspect of the new engine hides in the mean flight hours before failure rate, often acronymed as simply MFHBF, if you're not up for word salad. This is, in principle, the average number of flight hours before an expected failure. The F-404 engine used for the Tiger Shark has less than half the number of parts that the F-16's Pratt & Whitney F-100 engine has. Because of this, it has a much better failure rate of 190 hours per failure, in comparison to the F-100's 45 hours. In fact, the F-404 was so reliable, the first F-20 flew for approximately 1,500 hours before the program was shut down. These technical improvements aren't only due to the engine, though. The wings were increased by a bit over 1.5%, mostly because of the leading edge extensions, and that improved overall lift efficiency by about 12%. The Tiger Shark's agility was also improved through a horizontal stabilizer and a fly-by-wire control system, which is, in essence, switching from a manual to an electronic control system. Tiger II pilots complained of the pitch being sluggish, and this was solved by increasing the stabilizer by 30%, which improved the instantaneous turn rate from 20 degrees per second. The turn rate is the speed at which an airplane can turn. The standard turn rate, which we see with airliners, is 3 degrees per second, and the turn rate of the F-16, which was the Tiger Shark's biggest competitor, something we'll get to later, that's about 20 degrees per second. In comparison to the Tiger II, the Tiger Shark could turn at a 47% higher rate at speeds greater than the speed of sound. Another major design that contributed to improved agility and speed lies in the materials used for its construction. Even though the Tiger Shark outweighs the Tiger II by a few thousand pounds, that difference would be even greater if the engineers didn't use fiberglass for several parts that were built from metal in the Tiger II. The cockpit was also completely reworked with a large heads-up display and a complete hands-on throttle and stick control system, which was, at the time, considered a more reliable option for the long term in comparison to competing aircraft. As for the armament, the Tiger Shark was equipped with 2 M39 nose-mounted cannons spraying 20 by 102mm rounds at a fantastic rate of 1,500 rounds per minute at anyone dumb enough not to hide when they saw the bird coming. Production models, which never came to be, planned on replacing the M39 cannons with Ford's Tiger Claw cannons, which were lighter and had a higher rate of fire. Cannons aside, the Tiger Shark was designed to use the weapons that other competing airplanes were brandishing at the time. This includes the entire range of the Mark 80 series bombs, Maverick air-to-ground missiles, and AIM-9 Sidewinder and AIM-7 Sparrow air-to-air missiles. With this design, the Tiger Shark seemed like a bit of a hole-in-one. The program itself finished a full 32 months before schedule, which is the antithesis of most modern military programs, and the higher-ups at Northrop were elated with the results. The plane was an improvement upon the Tiger II, but it was not a top-of-the-line aircraft. Its downfall, in terms of production, started with testing. Outstanding performance, or is it? The main purpose of the F-20 was for the United States to arm its allies. Some would perhaps be used within the US military system, but the primary objective of this new airplane was to be sold to US allies during the Cold War to suppress Soviet influence. In that competition, the F-20's biggest competitor was the F-16, and during initial testing, the Tiger Shark was actually blowing one of the most popular fighters at the time out of the water. Northrop wanted to test the Tiger Shark quickly to allow foreign Air Force pilots, for whom the bird was designed, to fly them as soon as possible. Northrop's tests included scramble time to mission-capable status at 40,000 feet altitude, instant to sustained turn rates at different altitudes, acceleration through different airspeed ranges at different altitudes, deployment of weapon systems, systems, successful use of armaments, successful completion of mission profiles. The F-20 could scramble incredibly quickly, much quicker than the F-16 because it carried less armaments. The Tiger Shark also required less maintenance at 15 hours per flight hour, while the F-16 required 34. Although the F-16 packed more firepower and exceeded the Tiger Shark's range, the Tiger Shark was still comparable in performance, and it was far superior in reliability and maintenance cost. This was, after all, the main line of Northrop's pitch. The lifecycle saving costs gained from purchasing F-20s instead of F-16s would pay off. The US Air Force, however, disagreed, and in an interview with Tom Martin and Rachel Schmidt for a case study of the Tiger Shark, an Air Force official commented that Northrop actually lost a great deal of credibility within the decision-making circles of the Air Force for saying that. Northrop officials seemingly ignored several problems that also showed up during testing. Aside from the lack of range and armament in comparison to the F-16, the F-20 had a few problems which were inseparable from its small size. For example, the wings were low-mounted, and because of that, there was limited clearance, while the position of the landing gear forced the loads, such as armament, to be positioned on the outer ends of the wings. The greater distance between the main body of an aircraft and the load's position on the wings, the more limited the weight is. The Tiger Shark could only mount 1,000 pounds on its hardpoints because of this. In comparison, the F-16 could load up to 6,000 pounds per wing without the use of under-fuselage pylons. If the pylons are used, the F-16 can carry 17,000 pounds on its hardpoints. Of course, it can't pull crazy high-G maneuvers, but it can carry a lot of sheer weight. In this regard, the F-20 just couldn't compare. Despite those drawbacks, though, at least 10 countries were seriously interested in buying the Tiger Shark. Bahrain was the first customer. South Korea even toyed with the idea of local production. Many foreign pilots tested the F-20, but 2 American pilots, Darrell Cornell and Dave Barnes, tragically died in test flights. In both instances, investigation confirmed that the F-20s had no design faults and that both pilots lost consciousness because of excessive G-forces. This is not what put an end to the F-20 project, though. Despite the 2 tragedies surrounding it and the F-16 outperforming it in a combat capacity, the Tiger Shark still performed where it mattered. On paper, it was a low-cost option, costing a mere $10.7 million, which is cheaper than the F-16A at $12.4 and the F-16 Fighting Falcon at $15. Unit life costs were almost 50% lower than those of the F-16. The F-20 consumed 53% less fuel, and according to some calculations, it was 4 times more reliable than other top designs of the era. To top it all off, the F-20 possessed beyond visual range air-to-air capability, which meant that it could engage at ranges around 40 kilometers or 24 miles. This is something that neither the Tiger II nor the F-16 could do at the time, with the F-16 unlocking this upgrade in 1989, a full 7 years after the F-20's first flight. This was, in fact, the only way the Tiger Shark outperformed the F-16 in terms of combat. What killed the F-20? It wasn't its performance, though. It was politics. Centerpiece of a bureaucratic nightmare. To explain this, we have to go back in time. In the late 1970s, Taiwan was in talks with the United States, looking for a fighter aircraft capable of matching China's fighters. At the same time, China was improving its relations with the United States, and they considered the US backing of Taiwan as a threat to their interests. So, the State Department blocked export of several weapons and even outdated models of the F-4 Phantom II that Taiwan was interested in. President Jimmy Carter would announce a policy in 1977 that greatly limited sales to NATO, Japan, and Australia, saying that the US could not be both the world's champion of peace and the world's leading supplier of the weapons of war. At the same time, the Soviets were selling newly designed aircraft to their allies, and US-friendly countries were turning to other solutions, such as the Dassault Mirage 2000. President Carter's policy wasn't working as planned either, as Barry N. Bleshman, the assistant director of the Arms Control and Disarmament Agency, said that despite the US's self-imposed limitations, worldwide arms sales had increased. On top of all that, Taiwan's need for a new aircraft did not evaporate into thin air, and after a few years of refusing to design a new bird, the ban was lifted in 1980 in accordance with the FX program. According to the document signed by President Carter, the program had to be self-funded, and the State Department would market the aircraft we now know as the Tiger Shark. By 1981, though, Taiwan started developing their own AIDC FCK-1, also known as the Indigenous Defense Fighter, and lost interest in the F-20 after waiting too long. The Soviets were invading Afghanistan at the time too, so President Reagan, after just taking office, signed a military aid package for Pakistan, one which included 40 F-16s. A lot of allied countries saw this as a breach of President Carter's promise of not selling top-of-the-line aircraft to anyone, and they now all wanted F-16s. The F-20, despite being a very high-performing aircraft, was seen as second-tier in comparison, and countries like Venezuela, Turkey, and Greece all pushed for the F-16. The United States also helped Israel develop its IAI-LAVI fighter, and while all of that was happening, Northrop was funding the F-20 project on their own, waiting on a promise that the United States would sell the new fighter. Unlike other companies, Northrop could not market the F-20 to foreign forces, as that was one of the conditions of the FX program. By 1984, it had become apparent that the State Department was not even trying to sell the F-20. During a congressional hearing, Brigadier General Thomas Barker of the U.S. Air Force testified that the Air Force was not marketing the F-20. He said that over 4 years, the U.S. had sold 100 fighters to 29 countries, and that France's aircraft exports show that there's a clear market for low-cost fighters, which the United States are not dipping their toes into. The Navy bought F-16s to act as aggressor aircraft in combat training, and there was a rumor that they were sold at a loss just to, as it said in football, park the bus in front of the goal. In 1986, after 6 years of despair and no buyers, Northrop finally drove the stake through the project's heart. The program had, at this point, set them back by at least $1.2 billion. This was, at the time, the single largest private investment ever made in the history of the American defense industry. In spite of the loss, Northrop did not protest the F-16 favoritism. They were, at the same time, developing the B-2 stealth bomber project, one of the greatest machines ever built, and they wanted to stay on the government's good side, a wise decision in retrospect. Despite the love aviation enthusiasts have for prototype aircraft that never went into mass production, and there's no shortage of their love for the Tiger Shark, it seems like it was just never destined to be. The project was fighting for its survival on several fronts. First of all, its main competition was the legendary F-16, an aircraft that was not only actively marketed by the Air Force and General Dynamics, its creator, but an aircraft that, in retrospect, was the better option. Both fighters were good at point defense, and the Tiger Shark surely had areas where it dominated, but despite its early-stage inferior avionics, the F-16 had massive growth potential. This was recognized by decision makers, which is why the United States never even considered using the F-20. The F-20 was the pinnacle of the F-5 design. It was maximizing its potential, while the F-16 was just the beginning of something new. On the other side, the F-20 was outright blocked from sales and poorly marketed by the State Department. Its second-tier and intermediate-tier designations made it sound like a cheap hunk of metal, and despite the great cost-effectiveness and lifestyle costs, its image never grew out of its own shadow. Finally, the Tiger Shark was developed with the wrong idea. Northrop officials thought that if no one else is, at the very least, third-world countries would be interested in this cheap aircraft. This proved to be wrong, as developing countries saw the United States selling them advanced fighters as a sign of friendship, and denying the sales of advanced aircraft was a sign of a poor relationship. In spite of the logical economic argument, third-world buyers did not care much for affordability and focused on performance and prestige instead. With this, unlike Icarus, the F-20 never flew too close to the sun. It never even took off, because it was created at the wrong time in the wrong place for the wrong market. Out of the 3 aircraft built, 2 crashed, and the third, intact Tiger Shark, can be found at the Los Angeles Science Center as a reminder that our fate is sometimes beyond our control. Thank you for watching.